Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first installment of Lessons from Books. Today, we're going to be talking about The Alchemist. Great book by Paulo Coelho, the Brazilian author. It's been much talked about. It is written as fiction. It's a story of a boy who takes a journey to find his personal legend or his destiny. And so we're going to go through it, and I'm just going to share some of the lessons I have learned as I read this book, okay? All right, let's begin. So the book begins with the alchemist on a caravan. We don't see him again until much later in the book. But in any case, he's reading a story that someone had left behind about Narcissus. Now, if you guys are familiar with Greek legends, Narcissus is a guy who's so into himself. He thinks he is the most gorgeous thing ever, that he's always staring at himself. So I put a picture up here just to give you an idea. But in this book, The Alchemist is reading, the story ends with Narcissus drowning. Well, traditionally the story ends with Narcissus drowning in the lake because he always goes there to admire himself. However, in this particular book, it continues where the lake begins to cry, and then the forest goddesses come by and assume that the lake is crying because Narcissus is dead. But then they find out that the lake is crying because it used to look at itself through Narcissus's eyes when Narcissus was admiring himself in the lake. So Narcissus is admiring himself in the lake is admiring itself through Narcissus's eyes. Now, this is the name where we get the word narcissistic, when someone is really, really full of themselves. That's where that word comes from. So the lessons we learn from this is that, first of all, I realized that you really cannot presume to know the motivations of anybody else simply by observing their actions. You would have to actually know their thoughts, and no human being knows that. Secondly, they say actions speak louder than words. So I said words tell us something, actions speak louder, but neither one actually tells us the true motivations in a person's heart. Only the person can tell you this. So next, we move on to Santiago. He's a shepherd boy. He chose to drop out of seminary where he learned to read. So he is literate, which is not something that a shepherd normally would be. And then he wants to travel. And that's why he chose this profession, because he can just lead his sheep around and just get to see places and meet people. When he asked for his father's blessing to leave the seminary, he realized that his father had given up on his own dreams. Initially, his father tries to discourage him, but eventually gives him some money to actually buy his first herd. Now, back in Santiago's time, being in a seminary and becoming a priest was a source of pride to a family. In fact, it still is in many places in the world, but Santiago chose not to do so, even though he had the opportunity. What do we learn from this? Well, people often criticize you for going after your dream because they never had the courage to pursue theirs. Now, that's a big one. So the next time someone is criticizing you for something that you are planning to do, or maybe for not doing things the way they think you should do them, just stop for a moment and think, like, where is this advice coming from? You can't see me, but I just made air quotes. And then most of the people who comment harshly on the handiwork of others, this is important for those of you who go on the internet and put out comments saying, oh, this is horrible, this person did something. I don't mind if you do that on this video. Really, I don't, because guess what? I'm doing something. So what are you doing? Create something so I too can come there and put a bad comment. Though I wouldn't do that. I would put a good one. Okay, next, Santiago's dream. So Santiago has this recurring dream. He has it twice in a row where he meets a little child, and then he goes to, I don't know, speak to the kid in the dream, and then as he touches the kid transports him to a different place, and he realizes he's standing in front of the pyramids and then of Egypt, and then the kid says, points to the pyramids and says, your treasure is over there. So when he has it the second time, it bothers him, and he's on his way to a town called Tarifa, where he had been before, and he met a merchant's daughter there, who he got to talk to for hours, telling her stories of all the things he had done as a shepherd. And so he's really, really anticipating going back to that town to sell some wool, but most importantly to meet her, because he feels like maybe he might want to settle there and just marry her. But then he realizes that the excitement created by the expectation of something is hardly ever matched or superseded by the actual achievement. What's the moral here? Enjoy the journey. You have to enjoy the journey. You cannot be fixated on the goal, because think about it. If you're expecting a really cool gift, maybe for your birthday, and you know someone is going to get you that thing you really, really wanted, the excitement you feel when you actually get the thing, yeah, you might still be excited because now you have it in your hands and you can use it, but like that's the highest that it's ever gonna be, because after that you already have it and now you want something else. So Santiago remembers that there is a gypsy in the town of Tarifa, so he decides that he's going to consult her when he gets there about his dream. So he gains no new information, but this gypsy woman is smart. The first thing she says to him is, as soon as she hears the dream, she says, promise to give me 10% of your treasure and I will tell you the meaning of your dream. And she makes him swear. And then after he does that, she says, well, if you saw a kid, then that means it's probably true. And that means you have to go to Egypt and find your treasure, which is what he already could have done that. He did not need her help to figure that out. So what did I learn from this? Looking to others to spoon feed you into your dream will only get you conned. If you know there's something you're supposed to do, go do it. Don't look for approval. Just go do it. Next, no one is going to do your work for you. I know this amazing quote by Jim Rohn, one of my favorite motivational teachers, and he says you cannot pay someone else to do your push-ups for you, which is great because you can. They can do push-ups, you can pay them, but you're not going to get the six-pack, okay? Just saying. And then people look out for their own interests. This is so true. So even when you come to me and I'm like telling you, oh yeah, you know, you could probably do this, I'm going to be looking out for my own interest. I'm going to be looking like, what can I gain after you do it? Okay. All right. Next, Santiago meets the old king. So while he's hanging out in Tarifa, he's approached by this old man and who just sits and begins talking to him. At that point, he's reading a book, but he's also reminiscing about his days in the seminary. And then he realizes that everyone seems to have a clear idea of how other people should lead their lives. Like, people have opinions, but most of the time they don't even know what they're doing in their own lives. So then the king approaches him and they start talking. And then he tells him, one of the things he tells him is that the world's greatest lie is the belief that we are all victims of fate. We create our own fate. Then he finds out that the king already knows everything about him, including the dream or the recurring dream, and urges him to pursue his personal legend. He also asks for a tithe of his herd, and the next day Santiago appears with 6 sheep because he has 60, and then he receives a blessing as well as Urim and Thummim. If anyone is familiar with the Old Testament, like this is a form of divination that the high priests used to carry in their breastplate of gold. So why is Santiago a shepherd? He has chosen a profession that is beneath him intellectually, but he has a greater purpose. It's because he wants freedom and he wants to travel and he wants adventure. Now, there are other reasons why you might choose to be a shepherd. Like if you lived in that time, maybe you want solitude, you like caring for animals. But the lesson here is that you should do work that fulfills your greatest needs. Even if it seems beneath you, you will still be happier if it's fulfilling something bigger inside of you. So it's good to always know your reason for being in a particular line of work, because that's what will make you happy. If you know, like, I'm just here for a while and then I'm gonna go do something else, or I'm here because it's a means to an end, or you have to know the reason why you're doing it. Also, keep the big picture in mind. If you're currently in the wrong line of work, know what it is you do after work that's going to take you closer to where you actually want to be. Money alone cannot make up for soul malnourishment. I really like this one. I came up with it myself. Thank you very much. Yes, and I have come to realize that in my own life. So everything I'm telling you is stuff that I have come to realize. Giving up on your dreams does not always look like failure. This is very true, because you might have money, you might have things, you might look at somebody and think they have it all, but deep down they're still unhappy. Why? Because they're not actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. The old king, he has a lot of good lessons. One of them is that he says to Santiago, how many sheep do you have? And Santiago says, oh, I have enough. And the king says, I cannot help you if you have enough. What does that mean? There needs to be a hunger in your soul. You need to want something more before you can make a move and before you can get help, even from God. You have to want more. You cannot find what you're not seeking. That's another way of putting it. If you're not seeking something, then, you're fine where you are. So you're not going to find anything new. Your desires are not yours alone. This is something he says. He says it's there, the infinite seeking expression. So if you believe that we are all extensions of God, then God seeks expression through you. And that thing that you're supposed to do is the thing that God wants to do through you. So when you look at it that way, it's not really about you. You don't have to be concerned about failing, because God is going to do it through you. And even if you fail, you'd have learned something. So, what's the point of not doing it? True desires are those with far-reaching beneficial effects. This is very important, because you hear people say, what if what you want to do is be a serial killer? I don't think anybody wants to do that. That's when your soul is in such a dark place that you want to hurt other people. That's not a desire. A true desire that comes from God is something that's going to benefit everybody. Then he tells him, your personal legend is your only real obligation on earth. That made me go, wow, because everything else we do and we struggle for, it's not worth the trouble if you're not actually doing what you're supposed to be doing. And then he talks about the principle of favorability, or beginner's luck. And what this means is that when you first embark on your journey towards your destiny, it is usually easy. Your first move is so easy. Like, for instance, Santiago finds a buyer for his sheep instantly and comes back with money ready to travel to Egypt. So that's beginner's luck. The first time you are helped, but after this, then you have the difficulties. But there is guidance to overcome these difficulties. There is guidance for your path, but you just have to take the first step, because you will be tested. So, just be ready for it. The final test usually will be very extreme, but you'll get through it if that's what you really want to do. So this concludes our first lesson. I hope you all enjoyed it, and join me for part 2 as we continue through this amazing book, The Alchemist.